We're here to answer questions, of course, and discuss with Connor Shaw about the changes that are on the beta.
Excellent.
So, Connor, don't hesitate to bring questions as we play, and if any of you glance anything fun to answer from the chat, we'll have a look and try to answer as much as we can. I'm just gonna do the usual disclaimer. I can't announce new releases or talk about other projects, so you can keep your question about when No Mercy is coming and these kind of things. And then let's just start this little test with Diamond to get into the fray.
Let me drop some ammo bags. I have a question from all of the Steam forums and the subreddit. Why are you continuing to ruin the game with all... Why are you making these decisions? Actually, surprisingly, the reception to the new beta has been pretty good from what I've heard, right?
Yeah, I only been insulted like twice, so that's pretty good so far.
Yeah.
It's usually more violent, let's say.
Usually it's riots in the streets. Usually it's Eagles winning the Super Bowl tier.
Oh, that was quite incredible.
Oh, sorry.
Real life spoilers. Oh, TiVo. Oh.
I don't know. I haven't used the television in a long time. But anyways, Payday.
Yes.
So the first thing I wanted to ask is why did you choose to increase the damage of several base game weapons as opposed to lowering enemy health in addition to 1 down on Mayhem and Deathwish as well?
I mean, this is because basically to have all weapons have a place in the game, we need a spread of let's say shot to kill, and if we lower the health, it basically removes the possibility to have that spread. Because right now, if you look at the DMR, they take 1 shot to kill normal units, they take 2 shots to kill heavy SWAT, and they take 3 shots to kill a taser or a medic. If we were to lower the health, then it's like what kind of space is there left for this type of weapon? Because we basically would just be squishing and removing a certain amount of cap.
Gotcha, that makes sense. I feel like decimal points used to matter more, but they were more confusing as a result. But they also gave you more fidelity. But you can just increase weapon damage and then you get more fidelity that way.
It's easier to have a longer range to tweaks rather than the small one with decimals. Without mentioning that decimal usually lead to math errors, which is less fun as well.
What? Math errors in this game? No.
Nah. But yeah, that's the main reason for that. As well as, I'm still gonna say that I think a lot of weapons currently are pretty viable. Again, not considering, like, we never balance the damage around 1 down. Always Deathwish.
And I'm assuming that we're gonna get some, like, changes to pistols and shotguns later, considering we've had, what, snipers, we've had LMGs, we've had assault rifles, and SMGs now.
Yeah, to answer that question, most shotguns are, I think, already in a pretty good place. I mean, shotguns are really strong.
I was actually... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's also very polyvalent thanks to the ammo type.
I was gonna ask about Overkill, basic, the skill at the top tier of Shotgunner. It seems that you guys are wanting to remove any skills that are basically just free damage and there's no real downside to it. Like with the removal of silencer skills, that was just a damage increase that didn't need to be triggered by anything. That said, Overkill Basic is basically that. It has an activation period, but it also lasts 20 seconds. So in effect, it's basically a constant 75% damage boost.
I mean, the basic version for shotgun, yes, that's the case. But here, there's 2 things that we're taking into consideration. The first one is that shotgun playstyle of keeping up the buff. While maybe the buff is too generous in terms of duration right now, it's something that's, I think, is quite nice by itself. But I think the most important, interesting part of the skill is the aced version of it, because it promotes a playstyle of switching between the shotgun and another weapon that could easily be, a DMR, for example, or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the skill we will probably tweak at some point. But
I was the first one down.
Not true.
I've been close already.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. I'm not terrible. I do feel like it could do with some tweaking in terms of duration, but I also know that a lot of people would rather it not change just because shotguns are really fun.
Wow, I went down. Yeah, that's also a thing. Oh shit, I didn't see that bulldozer in the corner. That's also the thing, like, it's a really fun to play shotgun in Payday because of how they work. So we don't want to ruin that either. Like, if we do some tweaks, is to, like, the duration of the skill. So maybe you have to work a bit more to keep the bonus up. But yeah. And then the pistols, which was the second part of the question, I believe.
Yep.
They're also, I don't believe they're in a bad place, but we know of some issue with the the tier 4 skill for pistols, which is quite limiting at the moment. So we probably do a little bit something about that, rather than actually do a direct buff to pistols. Which
limiting actually is a good way of putting it. It seemed I almost never take the top tier pistol skill. I usually just go up to Equilibrium, I believe is the reload skill, and then get that. Because the top tier is the damage buff, but it's so you have to be so precise to get it to work consistently.
It's too hard to keep up, so we'll probably work in to make it more like easier to stack up, basically.
Speaking of top tier skills, any? Sorry, I kind of cut you off there. If you had any more.
No, that's fine. I was just confirming what we just said.
Oh, okay. Graze. I really like Graze. I've seen a lot of people mostly confused about how it works. So if you want to give a short rundown, are you using a sniper right now?
Yeah, I'm actually playing with it right now. So as some people might have seen, when I shoot with my sniper, sometimes enemies around my target also take damage. This is basically because of that new skill we introduced in the beta, which is currently called Graze, which again might not be the final name. We might change that. But basically, the basic version is that whenever I hit a target with a sniper rifle, in a radius around the bullet trajectory, I will do damage to units standing there. And the 8th version is that if it's a headshot kill, then the damage of that graze effect is increased from 20 to 100%. So basically, as you might have seen, maybe I can do it here. Oh, someone killed it. But by headshotting a taser, I can kill heavy SWATs that stand next to him. Oh, taser.
Generally speaking, I've found it's better to aim for the person furthest away in a corridor, for instance, when using the skill, and then everyone who's in the way between you and that person will take damage. It seems very powerful. Obviously, it's a top tier skill, so it takes a lot of investment, but if you're using snipers anyways, it's going to be in that trade.
I've seen both people commenting on how easy and hard is it to use, and I think this is
careful.
Oh, this is probably maybe the first skill that require a very high skill cap to be able to use, because it's all rely on where you place your shots. Like it can be very powerful if you are very good with sniper rifles and can always, you know, trigger the kills through the graze mechanic. But if you like a bit of aiming and miss every now and then the skill won't be that amazing. Which, you know, is also what sniper are supposed to be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do a well-placed shot and watch as it devastates the enemy lines.
I saw a couple questions in chat that I thought were pretty good. First of all, about underused perk decks. Thoughts about potentially buffing them. They mentioned Sociopath, but you have already touched on Sociopath, and personally I think it's very good right now. But Yakuza, that Yakuza is a very underused perk deck right now. Any thoughts on potential changes for that?
We will do additional tweaking to perk decks, but referring to the Yakuza, it was kind of meant there to be for a very special niche of playstyle when we made it. I mean, it increases things like speed at a very high cost, which is you have to be low health for it. So maybe that's not the best example of one we would buff, but we definitely will do some additional tweaks to, let's say, less used perk decks.
Does anyone else hear a cloaker that's dead? This cloaker's corpse is still making noise. I'm concerned.
Yeah, me and Andreas talked about it. You are in a decently decent state at the moment.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah.
We're exploring a new and an interesting ground.
Americans.
Server is quite far away.
Yeah, pistol is something that should be sort of inherent and easy to use. have an entire tree dedicated to making them on par with other weapons. So I guess what they're trying to say is that it might be better to include some skills that could also help pistols in other trees that you might be in anyways, instead of having to dedicate an entire tree just for pistols.
I mean, I would want to say that it's kind of true for all weapons.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to invest somewhere usually, and like SMG it's oppressor. Sniper rifle now it's more obviously sharpshooters than it used to be. Shotguns, they have the shotgunner, and that's kind of by design of how Payday's been. And if we take a bit of a look back at the game, it's like 4 years ago there was really one build that people were playing, which was I don't remember if we played at that time, but everybody was playing a Master Forcer.
Yeah, I remember that.
And everybody has a shotgun skill, everybody had a locomotive, and everybody has a car 4, and that was pretty much the game for everybody. So what we did at that time is we basically expanded that logic of buff your weapon, buff your favorite means of survival, and that's why we introduced all the weapon subtrees, as well as all the defensive and utility subtrees, so you can choose to improve whichever aspect you prefer. The one concern I could see is that usually when you do a build, if you want to switch weapon, it means you have to rebuild for that weapon. But I mean, seeing how it's free to rebuild, I think it's less of an issue than it's up here.
Also, someone was asking about, this is something I've wanted for a while too, making the effect for picking up grenades from fully loaded Ace, where you have a chance to pick up throwables, making that a base game effect to help free players deal with shields and Captain Winters more easily, instead of that being part of fully loaded Ace, making that just a thing that happens in the game in general.
That's something we considered, and that we actually sort of implemented with the bots. They have a perks that grant you grenade every few kills. The problem we're facing is that it's a bit more of an undertaking to actually fix that as a constant game mechanic, as we have to rework the ammo specialist sub-key as well as the AI now.
Yeah, true.
So maybe at a later date, but
yeah, with the perk deck ammo pickup effect, fully loaded Ace, just the additional, what would it be, like 20% ammo pickup rate isn't quite enough to merit acing it. So you need to come up with another skill to add there as well. Alright, let me check one of my questions then. Oh, mutators. I'm sure people are just thrilled to hear about mutators, the most exciting game mechanic. But that's kind of the thing, is that they were really fun on release, but because they cut your pay so much and your experience so much, most people tend to not use them. Would there be any chance, especially since you said you wanted to make the one down mechanic a mutator, if I recall correctly, any chance of readdressing mutators, potentially making some, if not some, not all of them, give bonus experience? I get the downside to that being that people would run to only play with mutators, though.
I don't necessarily how to go about that. Okay, so the first thing is, I think it's something we are reconsidering right now, and that we might have seen as a mistake to cut the reward. However, I would say some of them should actually cut your access to reward, because they make the game, you can make the game incredibly easier by using certain mutators, while some others actually make the game harder. So I don't know when and if, but it's definitely something we have a discussion about at the office, and I can say there might be change for that. But this is the type of stuff, if you want to speed up how fast we work on it, it's kind of, we have to prioritize what we work on. We do that based on seeing how popular something is, and it's kind of hard to gauge how popular mutator would be if they were without rewards. But if people make noise about it, it's definitely something that we would work into fixing faster.
I know that people have been asking for a mutator, base game mutator, to, let's say, change the amount of pagers in a stealth heist, without naming names, to potentially help alleviate the problem of people using the thing that changes the amount of pagers in a stealth heist. Making it a base game mutator that disables achievements and lowers pay grade might still be interesting just for the fun of it.
Expanding more mutators would be fun, but that's something that's I would
Again,
say a bit low
priorities.
priority right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, that's kind of always a thing. There's so many things we want and we could do. We're just trying to prioritize, you know, what benefits the most.
And currently, game balance seems to be, and performance seems to be some of the most important things. Is this
Yeah,
bulldozer
this is
trying to go
something-
with us? There we go.
Yeah, but it's not coming. This is a kind of thing that affects everybody and that feels more important to us. You know, rather than working on the few mutators which are fun but maybe not as widespread as other content might be.
Yes. Let's see. I saw someone asking about potentially buffing trip mines. I think they're fine myself, but do you have an opinion on it?
It's not that they're weak, but because they're limited supplies, I feel like you know, it's like, oh, it's really good if you do something like a bank heist. You can place them, like use all 14 of them to basically deny quite a lot of the enemies. But if you do something longer, like Oxon Breakout Day 2 or something like that, then you're not gonna have enough of them to be able to deal, you know, continuously with how you would do with sentries or any of the other, you know, buffing sub-tree you can have in there. So maybe we get the time here. It would be interesting to give some sort of way to replenish them, as for grenades, you know, like every X ammo box you get an extra trip mine or something like that.
I could see that.
But I feel like because they also grant the ability to shape charge, it's not like it's that obsolete either.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Most people don't bring trip mines and shape charges. Most people see it as bringing shape charges and trip mines.
because you basically cannot separate them.
Well, yeah, but people bring them for the shape charges and then just use the trip mines because they have them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So at the same time, it's not as bad as it could have been otherwise.
Oh, yeah. I feel like this is probably not the person to ask. Someone asking about more plans for the Infamy system rework.
So I already answered that quite a few times, but basically our view is that Infamy, as it is important because we have quite a lot of hardcore players that eventually reach the maximum, but the population of people that would benefit from a new Infamy system are so little compared to something like what we're doing right now. So it really puts it at a lower priority in terms of what we want to be doing. So we have plans for Infamy. We might get there eventually, but right now we rather fix how you know, our difficulty work and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than spend programming resources that we, you know, use to improve the AI. Basically, it's like we choose between improving our AI or doing Infamy, and which case improving the AI would take priority in that regard. I have some of the question here I can see. About silencer, what you want from them to be just for stealth only. I don't say that they must be a power creep, but just work. So the silencers, I know a lot of people feel like losing the damage boost that makes them obsolete, but I think it's far from that. I mean, silencer are not needed by default right now, but they still, with the skill, give quite a lot of stats, without mentioning that they have the innate advantage that because they're silenced, enemy will target you less, basically, which make you less likely to die. So they kind of have their own you know, inside advantages for just being silencers. So I don't think they're in a place where it's bad. Then there's also, of course, they're dedicated for stealth. I mean, we won't go away from that. And personally, sometimes I use silencer as well, just because I like the sound of a silence better, or a silence weapon better. So there are all these factors in there, and I think it just goes down in the end to what type of skill you use and what type of bonuses you want to get from your compensator and your skills.
That's a question I had ready to actually about barrel extensions, because there are certain weapons where if you don't have DLC, namely the Gauge Mod Courier Pack, the best barrel extension for a lot of weapons is actually the Jungle Ninja. It's almost objectively better than the Ported Compensator, which adds accuracy and damage the cost of stability, whereas the Jungle Ninja adds the same amount of accuracy and stability and doesn't affect damage. Many barrel extensions add like 1, 2, 3 damage, which really doesn't make much of a difference anymore. Sometimes it'll let you hit a breakpoint, but other times it's just damage for the sake of damage. Basically, the point is, would you be looking at maybe changing stats on barrel extensions?
This is probably something like honestly we won't really touch. The problem being that first is like you say, we don't want to have compensators or barrel extension actually dictate damage cap for weapons, because we used to have an era where the only way to have a car for viable was to have
42
that
damage.
compensator, yeah, that, and without it the weapon was considered garbage and it wasn't a great thing overall. So they're basically here to add a little bit of accuracy or stability depending on what you need on the weapons. And what we try to do is give a different array of combination of those, but the reality is that there's always a better combination no matter what, which is there's basically one that gives the best stability and one that gives the best accuracy. And then either you play with a weapon that only care about accuracy like a sniper, or you play with a weapon that only care about stability like Akimbo's SMG or something like that, in which case you already have made your choice. And those hybrid in betweens and all of this won't really matter, and that's more of a like earlier design flow that wasn't really thought about when we started adding that many mods to the game, and there's not any good solution we could do right now, so we rather not do some weird fix that won't really fix anything and potentially make it work. And I know that the reality right now is that we more or less has 2 viable compensator and 1 good silencer for crit and 1 good silencer if you go with a loud silencer build, which is a thing per se.
But that's gonna happen, isn't it? That there will be some meta that develops. It does seem you're trying to take measures to make more weapons viable and all weapons viable potentially, but eventually there is just gonna be a meta that develops.
Yeah, so basically we would just be switching around which one are the better if we were to tweak them in that regard.
You'd just be changing the meta rather than making everything viable.
Exactly, because there's not enough option in terms of what we can tweak on them to make them interesting, because it's basically stability, accuracy, or concealment, and any combination of those will yield 2 best option no matter what per se. It's a question: do you ever plan to rework / revamp stealth? If so, how would you do it? So this is also something we have talked about. I cannot say if we'll get to it eventually or not, but basically, yes, we know we have a lot of stealth flaws, and we know that the main thing is that it doesn't scale past a certain difficulty. Like if you can stealth on very hard, you can pretty stealth any difficulty, anything on the game without any problem. And we're looking into what we want and could do, and I think we already talked about ideas we had, but like it's thing like maybe some sort of time pressure or this kind of things that will allow you to be a bit more in a stressful situation regarding at the opposition of you just being around and waiting for guards to move away over your way and such. But if we do, we'll inform the community and start talks as we did with the beta right now. It won't come, suddenly one morning is like, hey, by the way, we reworked all stealths, and it's like, oh.
People are asking about longer heists, and I feel like I could already answer that for you and say, with people having crashing problems, whether by the game or their mods, maybe 7-day heists might not be the best way to go.
No. Without mentioning that we couldn't have 7, if we had a 20-minute heist in a 7-day heist, and it's like doing a 7-day heist is almost 2 hours of heisting.
Yeah. Like I feel like if you want to do that, you can just do Crime Spree.
Yeah, and 2 hours of heisting, you have to sit there for 2 hours and play. That sounds like a bit much.
Fix as many things as you can with Payday 2 before proceeding to Payday 3 is something someone's saying, which seems to be what you're doing.
I mean, we haven't abandoned the game at all. I mean, we're still updating it. I know some people might feel like it because we are doing less update. I mean, we have less manpower than we used to have, but we definitely stay behind the game.
A lot of the updates seem to be more substantial.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier for us to group things together rather than, to have a constant flow of things coming out. and it kind of hurts the game stability, which wasn't that great.
Is there any consideration, keep in mind I'm not assuming there is actually any consideration, because there really shouldn't be, about VR when doing balance changes. VR is kind of its own thing and almost impossible to make good game balance around, so I don't really expect there to be.
I mean, we have consideration though, because VR and PC player will be able to play together on release, and the most important thing to us is to make sure that as a VR player, you should never be a burden to your team, you know?
That's true.
Because that's like, we want PC players and VR players to play in harmony, let's say, where you see a VR players and you wouldn't mind that he's a VR player. So we making sure, you know, always that that they're both on par in terms of power and usefulness, I want to say.
Like, something I'm seeing a lot of people asking about in the chat is what the new name for One Down would be. I saw a couple names being thrown around, like Death Row or Death Sentence, but to me those sound too similar to Death Wish. One that I really liked was Last Resort, which was what the Zeal team was called in the comic when they were introduced. But I mean, it's I'm not sure if you're the one who gets to decide what the name is, though.
Well, I don't get to decide, but I guess I get to influence it. But we don't know yet what it's gonna be called. We've been looking at what people have been suggesting, of course, because you know.
Didn't we decide on easy?
Yes, that's right, because we want to go for circle, you know.
Speaking of, people have been complaining that the minigun bulldozers have far too much health. What do you think about that?
Well, we had a problem with them having smaller headshot multipliers than they should have, so...
Oh, is that not intentional?
That wasn't intentional. All bulldozers are supposed to have the same headshot multiplier.
Gotcha.
So it is fixed in the current update.
Oh, okay.
So I want to see what people say after the fix. So they should have take about more or less 50% more damage in the head, which is quite a lot. And then we'll see what people say. But the minigun bulldozer, I guess you have to get a bit used to playing against him, because he's behaved differently than the other one.
You can't just sprint in his face and unload damage into him like you can with other bulldozers.
Exactly, but Ivory is very slow. It's very easy to, you know, lose if you can't deal with him right away. But he will eventually reach you, so it's kind of, you want to deal with him before he gets too close and personal. And we'll see what people think about that after they get a bit more used to dealing with him.
We did, when we tried him out, we did boost his HP quite a lot though, because we realized that as he was so much slower than the other dosers, he didn't feel like a threat at all, because he was so easy to handle, just because he was so slow. So, yeah.
I feel like potentially a good way of handling that is, instead of giving him more health, if possible, give the faceplates more health, so that it still takes the same amount of headshots once the faceplate is off to kill him, but the actual act of breaking his armor takes longer.
We actually tried that very shortly. The problem is that it's too easy to take care of the faceplate with with a lot of explosive and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
and,
rocket launchers, grenade launchers, yeah.
And the faceplate helps with that to be so high that it's outrageous to make it in a way where it would work.
Yeah, you can't really balance around both explosives and the guns in that regard.
I mean, explosive has still a big advantage. Right now it's usually one shot to get both away, and you know, which is very convenient.
Any hope, again, not his apartment, but I guess maybe if you've heard murmurs about a skin trade-up system, i.e. a way to make low-quality, like, broken-in skins, trade them into something higher quality and more appealing. But again, that's not your department. But if you don't know anything about it, mum's the word.
I don't know about anything about it, but we have observed the problem of some people stacking too many commons, which is, you know, the reason why people want the trade-ups, because you won't use most of these commons.
Did you have any say in the perk deck, the hacker perk deck that was being developed for Joy?
Oh yeah, I made that perk deck as well. It's still the Payday team working on Payday Switch.
I'm assuming you don't want to just reveal what it is, but any hints to what it might be?
I would probably be slapped in the face if I do so, so
right,
let's not.
No worries. SWAT turrets, yes, I had a question about that too. Thank you, chat. SWAT turrets have been a team AI killer ever since they were introduced, and bots get shot many times, are unable to run away from it, and flail before going down. In my opinion, it's just that they are a bit, like, expel a bunch of your ammo into this thing to be able to progress in this area. It seems a little simple, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not a very nuanced mechanic.
There's many, like, this is one of the issue we have with the SWAT ban, and there's quite a bit, but I think it's all stem from that one problem, which is SWAT van turret does not scale with the amount of player you have on the heist, because technically if you're alone with 3 bots, like the SWAT van turret should have a fourth of the health it has right now, so you would be able to deal with it very easily if you were alone, and shouldn't be dependent on bots to be able to do with the SWAT van turret. So to me the solution would be to actually add scaling for the turret. So if it, for example, if it's one player, it has 100 health. If there's 2 players, it has 200 health, and so on, so on, so on. So basically making it easy if you're alone to deal, as well as harder if you're, of course, with 4 players, but then you 4 players that can shoot at it. But yeah, I think it's also maybe on the earlier version of the use, we didn't make such a great use of it. It was in places where you could just ignore it, and I think we might have done some more interesting use of it. So in things like Beneath the Mountain or the Scarface heist, whereas I feel like more like a fight event rather than, oh, we're just gonna be there in the street now in front of the bank, just don't mind us type of situation.
I can ask a question that might be as difficult as Goat Sim itself is. What is your biggest regret for Payday 2's balance that you ever made?
The Arkansas to speak. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, but really?
No, it's a joke because it was an accident.
I was gonna say, it should have maximum concealment. Definitely.
Yeah, no, but you don't know, we released it with 232 concealment at some point by accident. So you could have a free concealment with a minigun and a rocket launcher. Biggest regret. I mean, I have regrets, but I don't know what's the biggest one. Yeah. I'm trying to think, but there's nothing to come to mind. There's many things that come to mind, rather.
No regrets.
No regrets, yes.
Here's another thought then. What is your thought on Inspire and how it's basically case in point necessary?
I mean, it's so part of Payday that at this point, like, ripping it out would just hurt everybody.
Oh, I don't expect it to be ripped out, but
and like every second of nerf will be I'm just gonna get into the car, will be like usually felt. It's not like we can just lower the cooldown more and people will feel like it. I don't think it's a bad thing though. It's a big part of what makes Payday fun today for a lot of players.
Oh yeah.
And I can understand how the more hardcore players have problem with it.
Please don't run me over. Thank you. Hi. Whose idea was the Goat Sim heist? Do you know? Were you there when that was happening?
I was there. I don't know what to say. Wait, is that where we're supposed to secure again? I forgot where we are.
It's a semi-truck that arrives in a...
I honestly don't play that heist that often.
I just realized, oh, I don't have it anymore. I just finished doing my review for this, so I have played this heist a lot recently. I feel like I am getting a little bit of... I'm not sure if it's offensive to say Stockholm Syndrome, but... I'm starting to enjoy this heist in a way that I know I really shouldn't.
For all the wrong reasons?
Yes.
I guess that happens.
The pain feels good.
I mean, it's not a bad concept, but it might not have been as fitted as we thought it would be with Payday.
I pointed out in my review that basically it's not any goofier than any other crossovers that you've done, and... Oh god, I don't know if I can get you, man. You didn't really have to, well, I say you, Overkill in general didn't really have to get overcomplicated when it came to making this crossover work. All you had to do was make a heist with goats. It's not like you had to put YouTubers in the game. Okay, maybe this is a can of worms I shouldn't be opening right now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Andreas, I need a med bag and a yell.
it's all a bad dream.
No.
But I was not talking. I think the thing with the goats is funny and kind of fits Payday. Like personally,
Especially for Vlad, yeah.
I mean, he's the guys that will smuggle coke in a bunch of goats and then lose them somewhere, and be like, guys, I have a problem. I fucked up again. And then it's like, oh, okay, we'll fix it this time. And then it's like, oh, I fucked up again. And then, yeah, that's kind of what I expected.
Yeah.
I think like what I was about to say is the problem of goats is not the goats, is that it's too big and there's too little cover. And I'm gone.
You managed to sum up my 14-minute review in 3 seconds. Good job.
Yes. Remember 10,000 hours at the game? I have ascended in feedback.
Someone asked, will medic doser damage be increased? Because currently, according to them, correct them if they're wrong, they do about 20 damage per shot.
I don't know the exact value, but I know they don't do a lot of damage. However, increasing the damage, they kind of already have the ability to heal other units, which kind of already makes them a threat because you have to deal with them before you're able to kill anybody else properly.
That's true. Their threat comes more from the amount of health they have rather than the amount of damage they do.
I think any PvP game with a healer, basically.
Well, that actually brings me to a point. Unless you had more thoughts on that.
No.
Ooh, careful. Medics currently, I personally feel like the normal medics, not medic dosers, have too much health. Because they have the same health as tasers currently. But I'm curious what you think.
I think they need to have the same thing as taser because otherwise you would accidentally kill them with explosives and stuff like that.
That's true. You have to put thought into it rather than it just being another enemy to deal with.
Yes, and that's the whole point of medics per se. Like when there's a medic, he becomes a priority because he will, screw you over if you try to kill a bulldozer or something like that.
Oh hey, here's a thought.
Don't jinx it.
How's the armor bag? Armor bag, the best deployable in the game.
Okay, you want to hear about regrets?
I think we found it.
This is something that was supposed to be something completely different, and because of resources, we didn't have time to finish what we wanted it to be.
Oh, if you could make a new enemy without having any concerns for budget, development time, engine constraints, anything like that, like your dream enemy, for instance, a flamethrower, like a K9 unit, something like that, what would it be?
So, my dream unit is to have like a mobile version of Captain Winters, but with a twist, meaning it's randomized between different type of captain, and they each come with a unique buff and a unique ability. So for example, let's say it would be 5 of them and they're randomly spawned during assault, and they're very, very rare units, so maybe you see 1 or 2 per assault wave depending on what difficulty you do. And it's like, oh, it's Captain Summers, and she has grenade launchers.
Can it not be Sergeant Summers?
Oh, Sergeant Summers, or yeah,
Admiral Autumn and Super Spring.
Yeah, and then they will work something like, she has a tear gas grenade launcher, and what she does is that she increases the damage of all enemies in the map as long as she's not killed, and that you have to basically, when she comes close to you, she becomes the top priority.
I alt-tabbed by mistake.
And then you got cloaked.
I just got up from being cloaked, only to accidentally alt-tab and get cloaked again.
Yeah, that would be my ideal, but it requires, to do technically 5 units for one system, and then...
Yeah. So again, budget, development time, engine constraints, all of that kind of factors into it.
Yeah. But I think that would be the most fun. It would bring a bit of what the medic has, the priority target, and change up a bit the gameplay, while every time being some different unit, because then we could probably find something unique for each of the captains, or sergeant, or whatever you want to call them. So that's an idea I toyed at some point, but it's too much work,
Thoughts about potentially buffing the ammo pickup rate of the assault rifles that formerly did like 70 to 80-ish damage, now do just shy of 100, so like AMR type rifles?
So this is a conflicting subject, and I'm not sure what we'll do about it, because Like if I consider that the player uses something like ammo efficiency and go for headshot, meaning it doesn't go full auto like you would with a low damage SMG or assault rifle, then it's kind of okay because you basically get 2 to 3 bullets per box, if I remember that correctly. And with the ammo return, it's every other bullet you shoot will return to your, to your ammo pool. And it doesn't take that many shots to kill a unit. So like by killing a normal SWAT, you will need 2 shots, and you basically get at least 3 bullets out of the deal, and even 4 if you're lucky. So I don't think it's that bad, but then I think a lot of people are using it as with oppressor, and then they're using body expertise.
Oh yeah.
But I think that will make them too strong. Is ever ammo efficient for people that spray enemies in the body? Because then it's just straight out better version of what's it called?
Of the other assault rifle. Oh, watch out.
Yes, there's a minigun here. I'm being sprayed.
Any plans to add Zeal variants of the minigun and medic dozers? Honestly, that's probably not for the best. I feel like the design is kind of intrinsic.
Yeah, it's like you say, I think it's better. They're very recognizable, and that's very important. Also, stop playing with him. Let's go.
Yay.
Yay, victory.
Again, that's not really his department about asking about workshop becoming more integrated for heist, custom heist and whatnot. Not really what you do.
No, can't really answer that. Though I won't deny it would be fun if community could make heists, but that's not that easy as it sounds to make it happen. So
Well, I was gonna say we have lots of custom heists, but it's just not in an official way.
No, yeah, but it's more complicated to actually officially add content to the game through a workshop than people think.
Yeah.
And then things that might work as a mod need to, doesn't necessarily mean they work with the game, which is why most of the time your mods will crash when we update the game, because we they're not in the consideration of how we work on things, and so people work on them differently. I'm trying to simplify something that's very complicated right now in a few words, so that won't work. So I'll stop there.
It's hard.
Yes, thank you, Eric, for your words of wisdom.
He's not
No
wrong.
problem.
No, he's not wrong. That's pretty much summarized. It's complicated. It's hard. But we'll stop here for today. And I will thank you for coming, Konosho, and it was fun to play.
No
And
problem.
I hope you guys had a lot of fun watching us. And have a good weekend and all that.
Cheers.